The night Rachel came down to my floor with a suitcase, I was deciding whether a sunroom needed 6 windows or 8. That was the kind of problem I understood. I was sitting at my kitchen table with a floor plan, a calculator, and 3 material estimates spread around my coffee mug. The apartment was quiet except for the low hum of the refrigerator and traffic passing outside the old warehouse building. Then I heard a door slam 1 floor above me. A few seconds later came the hard, uneven sound of suitcase wheels crossing the hallway. I stopped working. The elevator moved, the numbers lighting up one at a time. When the doors opened on my floor, Rachel stood inside with a suitcase in one hand and a large tote hanging from her shoulder. Her eyes were red. Her fingers were shaking around the suitcase handle. I had known Rachel since college. I had seen her handle flooded apartments, angry tenants, missing rent payments, and contractors who thought arriving sometime before lunch counted as being on time. I had never seen her look like that. "What happened?" I asked. She stepped out of the elevator, but she did not answer right away. The doors closed behind her. "Jason left," she finally said. I glanced at the suitcase, then back at her. "Left for the night. For someone from his office." The way she said it was almost calm, like she was reading a maintenance report. That was Rachel's habit when something became too much. She turned it into information. "He said she makes him feel spontaneous," Rachel continued. "Apparently she makes him feel young again." I did not say what came into my head. Rachel gave a short laugh that had no humor in it. "He said I plan everything. That I'm too serious. Too focused on schedules and bills and responsibilities." Those are interesting complaints from a man who owns a rental property. She looked at me, and for half a second I saw the Rachel I knew. Then her face tightened again. "Chris," she said quietly, "am I still attractive?" I had imagined Rachel asking me something like that more times than I would ever admit. In every imagined version, the timing had been different. She was happy. She was free to hear my answer. I could tell her the truth without it becoming another weight she had to carry. This was not that moment. She was standing in a hallway with a suitcase because the man she trusted had made her question everything good about herself. "You're asking the wrong question," I said. Her expression changed. "That sounds like a careful answer." "It is a careful answer." "Why?" "Because what Jason chose to do doesn't measure how attractive you are. It measures what he was willing to throw away." She looked down. "You were never supposed to compete with another person for basic loyalty," I said. "And being organized doesn't make you less desirable. It means somebody knows when the insurance payment is due." That got another small laugh from her, this one slightly more real. Then she looked toward the elevator. "I can't go back upstairs." "You don't have to." I took the suitcase from her and brought her inside. My apartment had 1 bedroom, 1 couch, and a kitchen table that was currently losing a fight with several construction drawings. I cleared a path with my foot and set her suitcase near the couch. "You take the bedroom," I said. "Chris, no." "Yes." "You have work tomorrow." "So do you." "I probably won't go." "Then you can sleep late in a proper bed while I complain about the couch." She started to argue again, but she was too tired to maintain it. I gave her a clean towel, a pair of sweatpants, and an old gray sweatshirt. It was too big for her, but she pulled it on and rolled the sleeves twice. I made coffee, even though it was late. Neither of us was going to sleep soon anyway. The story came out in pieces. Jason had started staying later at work. He had changed the way he dressed. He kept his phone face down and carried it with him from room to room. Whenever Rachel asked what was happening, he told her she was imagining things. Then he began criticizing the same qualities he had once depended on. She was too practical, too predictable, too focused on keeping everything running. That evening, Rachel had finally asked him directly whether there was someone else. He admitted there was. "He called it honesty," she said, staring into her mug. "Like telling me now somehow cancels out every time he lied before." I wanted to fix something. That was how my brain worked. Give me a damaged floor plan, and I could show you where to move the wall. Give me a bad estimate, and I could find the missing cost. There was no useful calculation for this. So I listened. A little after midnight, Rachel went into my bedroom. I stayed on the couch with a blanket that barely reached my feet. Her suitcase stood beside the coffee table, making the whole situation feel temporary, though I knew nothing would be normal in the morning. I lay awake longer than I should have. I loved Rachel. I had for years. But love did not give me permission to turn her worst night into my opportunity. She did not owe me anything because I opened a door and made coffee. The next morning, her phone started buzzing before either of us had eaten. Jason's messages moved between apology and blame. Then came practical instructions about the duplex they owned together. At 8:43, an email arrived from his attorney. Rachel read it once, then handed me the phone. Jason wanted the duplex listed immediately. The message suggested Rachel's emotional state might prevent her from making reasonable property decisions. Jason offered to take control of the sale himself. He already planned this, she said. I read the email again. It looks that way. He thinks I'm going to fall apart and sign whatever he sends. Then don't answer yet. I called Megan, a real estate attorney I knew from a renovation project with a disputed property line. She spoke directly with Rachel and made the situation simple. Jason could not take control of a jointly owned property just because Rachel was upset. Megan told her to save every message and gather the deed, loan papers, taxes, insurance records, rent history, repair invoices, tenant emails, and proof of payments. Rachel looked around my kitchen table. That could take weeks. We're not making it perfect today, I said. We're making piles. I found folders and wrote labels across them. Ownership, mortgage, taxes, insurance, rent, repairs, tenants, Jason, and questions for Megan. Once Rachel started sorting, something in her changed. She still looked exhausted, but her hands stopped shaking. Most of the records were already organized because she had been the one managing the duplex. By noon, we went upstairs for the rest. Jason had taken his clothes, shoes, laptop, and several small electronics. He had left a coffee mug by the sink and a phone charger beside the couch, as though he had stepped out and might return. Rachel froze in the doorway. We can leave, I said. She shook her head. I need the records. She walked straight to the cabinet near her desk and pulled out 2 binders. I carried the bank statements, tenant files, and a box of receipts. Then we sat at her kitchen table and spread everything in front of us, one document at a time. For the next several days, Rachel's kitchen table became our second job. I would finish work downstairs, wash the dust or pencil marks off my hands, and head up with coffee or whatever takeout required the least explanation. Rachel usually had the folders open before I arrived. The first night, we built a timeline of the duplex from the day she and Jason bought it. Rachel found the closing papers, the first contractor bids, inspection reports, lease agreements, and photographs from the renovation. I entered dates into a spreadsheet while she matched payments to receipts. April 12th, she said. The upstairs water heater failed. I found the invoice. You paid this. Jason was traveling. Did he reimburse you? He said he would. I added a note instead of asking more. At that point, we were only trying to understand the records, not argue with them. Rachel handled every message to Megan herself. I helped make the questions shorter and clearer, but Rachel sent them. When Megan called, Rachel sat beside me with a legal pad and answered every question about the property. She knew when each tenant had moved in. She remembered which contractor had replaced the back steps and which city inspector had required an extra handrail. She knew the insurance renewal date without checking. Jason's attorney had described her as too emotional to make decisions. Meanwhile, Rachel could explain 2 years of property operations from memory. At first, her handwriting was uneven. By the 3rd evening, her notes had returned to the neat block letters I recognized from college. That was how I knew she was finding her balance again. Not because she stopped hurting. She still went quiet whenever Jason sent a message. Sometimes she would stare toward the empty space in her closet before forcing herself back to the table. But then she would pick up another receipt. Receipt by receipt, she was putting the facts where nobody could rearrange them. We developed a routine. I brought dinner. Rachel made coffee. We worked until one of us stopped understanding basic numbers. Write in the comments. When you work late, what helps you most? Coffee, takeout, quiet music, or a good friend? One night, we found an old email from a tenant reporting that the kitchen faucet was making a noise like a disappointed goose. Rachel read it twice before laughing. I remember that faucet, she said. The plumber turned it on and asked whether the goose was included in the lease. We laughed harder than the email deserved, but it felt good to hear her laugh without immediately looking guilty afterward. Another evening, our hands reached for the same folder. Her fingers rested against mine for a second. Neither of us moved right away. Then Rachel pulled back and opened the folder as though nothing had happened. I did the same, though I read the same invoice 3 times without understanding it. The distance between us had changed. It was not romance. I would not let it become that while her life was still moving under her feet. But the old, easy friendship now had something unspoken sitting beside it. One Thursday, Rachel fell asleep at the table while I was checking repair totals. Her head rested against the back of the chair, one hand still holding a yellow marker. I took it from her before she decorated her face and covered her with the blanket from the couch. She opened her eyes slightly. "Sorry," she murmured. "You fell asleep. You didn't damage municipal property. I keep needing things from you. You made coffee. That doesn't seem equal. Your coffee is very strong." That earned a tired smile. The next evening, a mug was waiting for me before I knocked. She had remembered exactly how I took it. Rachel also stopped apologizing every time I stayed late. She still asked whether I had work to finish, but she no longer acted as though her problems were an inconvenience she had to repay. We finished the first complete expense summary on Friday. The numbers showed what Rachel already knew but had never written in one place. She had handled nearly every tenant issue, most repairs, all insurance communication, rent tracking, city notices, and routine budgeting. Jason had participated at the beginning. After that, his involvement had become occasional opinions and promises to look at things later. Rachel leaned back and studied the spreadsheet. "I made it easy for him not to notice," she said. "You made sure the property kept running. That isn't the same thing." "No. One is your responsibility. The other is his choice." She looked at me for a long moment. "Why are you doing all this?" I kept my eyes on the laptop. "Because you need help." That isn't what I asked. I knew exactly what she was asking. For years, the truth had stayed in a safe place because Rachel had chosen someone else. Saying it now would not be brave. It would put another decision in front of her before she had recovered from the last one. "You're my closest friend," I said. "Is that the only reason?" I looked at her then. There were several answers I could have given, and every one of them would have been true. Instead, I said, "Friendship is enough reason to show up." Rachel heard what I had not said. I could see it in the way her expression softened. She did not push. "Okay," she said quietly. After that, she stood a little closer when we reviewed pages together. Her goodnight hugs lasted an extra second. Mine probably did too. Neither of us crossed the line. On Monday afternoon, Megan called while I was measuring cabinets in an older house near downtown. Rachel texted me 10 minutes later. "Come up when you get home." She had used capital letters, so I skipped takeout and went straight upstairs. Rachel was standing in the kitchen holding a printed email. "Megan sent formal notice," she said. "No listing, no agreement, and no decisions until there's a complete review of ownership and contributions. So Jason can't rush it. Not right now." She smiled, and then she crossed the room and wrapped both arms around me. I held her carefully at first. Rachel tightened her arms. For one moment, I stopped thinking about folders, property records, or what was wise. I only felt her cheek against my shoulder and the relief moving through her. When she pulled back, she stayed close. Her eyes moved to my face like she was about to say something. Then her phone lit up on the table. "Jason." The room changed, but Rachel did not. She reached over, turned the screen face down, and said, "No, not to me. Not even directly to him." She said it to the control he still expected to have. Then she picked up Megan's letter again and began reading the next steps aloud. That was when I understood Rachel was no longer just surviving what Jason had done. She was rebuilding. Jason stopped trying to move fast and started trying to make Rachel look guilty. A few days after Megan's letter, Rachel called me while I was at work. "Have you seen the post?" she asked. "What post?" She sent me a link. One of Jason's friends had uploaded several photographs. In one, I was leaving Rachel's floor late at night. In another, we were sitting in a coffee shop with folders and a laptop between us. A third showed Rachel walking into the building beside me while wearing my old gray sweatshirt. Every photograph was real. The story attached to them was not. The post never directly said Rachel had been seeing me before Jason left. It only asked questions and let people build the accusation themselves. Jason shared it with a message saying he had recently learned things that made the breakup more complicated than people understood. That was how he operated. He placed an idea in the room, stepped back, and acted surprised when somebody repeated it. By lunchtime, Rachel had messages from mutual friends, former coworkers, and people she had not spoken to in years. Some asked whether she had been involved with me. Others told her they now understood why Jason left. When I reached her apartment, She was standing by the kitchen table with her phone in one hand. The gray sweatshirt was folded on the counter. "I shouldn't have worn that," she said. "It was cold. It looks terrible in the picture. It looks like you borrowed a sweatshirt after your relationship ended. Nobody knows that." "We do." She shook her head. "That isn't enough anymore." Then Megan forwarded a message from Jason's attorney. He was now claiming that my involvement was influencing Rachel's decisions about the duplex. Since I had no ownership interest, Jason wanted authority to handle the listing. Rachel read the message and closed her laptop. "You can't keep coming up here," she said. I stayed beside the table. "Is that what you want?" "I don't know. Or is it what Jason wants you to feel ashamed enough to do?" Her eyes filled, but her voice stayed steady. "People think I was lying to him. The timeline says otherwise. The pictures don't. The first picture was taken after he left. The coffee shop meeting was about property records. You wore the sweatshirt because your clothes were upstairs and you stayed in my apartment that night." She looked toward the folded sweatshirt like it had become proof against her. "I accepted your help, and now he's using it against both of us. He's using shame because the property pressure didn't work." Rachel sat down. "I'm tired of being described by him," she said. That sentence changed what we did next. Until then, every document pile had been about proving Rachel's work. I opened the expense spreadsheet again and asked, what was Jason supposed to pay that he didn't? Rachel looked at me. "We know what you handled," I said. "Let's look at what he promised." We went through the records from the beginning. A pattern appeared almost immediately. Rachel had paid several months of insurance. She had covered a major plumbing repair, a roof leak, county taxes, replacement appliances, tenant lock changes, landscaping cleanup, and part of the mortgage shortage during a vacancy. Besides, several entries were emails from Jason. "I'll transfer my half Friday. Can you cover this and I'll settle it next month? Send me the total again." Some payments never came. Some arrived months late. Others covered only part of what he owed. Rachel stared at the screen. "He kept telling me we were even. You weren't. I should have tracked this better." "You did track it. You just trusted his promises." Megan reviewed the records the following morning. She explained that Rachel could file a formal claim against Jason's share of any sale proceeds for unpaid property expenses. It would not automatically give Rachel the duplex, but the dispute would have to be resolved before the property could be sold cleanly. Jason needed speed. The claim removed it. Megan filed the paperwork. Jason responded by scheduling a public open house. His logic was obvious. Once buyers were walking through the rooms and an agent was discussing offers, he expected Rachel to feel pressure to cooperate. Megan told us not to argue online or create a scene. The financial claim would be disclosed through the proper channels. Rachel changed clothes 4 times that Saturday morning. The open house was scheduled for 1 in the afternoon. Sunlight filled her apartment while dresses, jackets, and shoes collected across the bed. "I look weak in this," she said, changing a blouse. "You look like somebody wearing a blouse." She gave me a look. "You should dress like the person who actually knows the property," I said. Rachel chose a navy dress and a light jacket. Megan met us outside the duplex. Several cars were already parked along the street. Through the front windows, I could see potential buyers moving between rooms. Jason stood near the entrance talking to the listing agent. His smile disappeared when he saw us. "Why is Chris here?" he asked. Rachel did not look at me. "The duplex belongs to me too," she said. Megan introduced herself and handed the listing agent formal notice of the unresolved expense claim and ownership accounting. The agent read the first page, then looked at Jason. "You told us the owners had agreed to sell." "They will," Jason said. "Rachel is reacting emotionally." Megan answered calmly. "Rachel has not authorized a sale." Jason turned toward her. "This claim is retaliation." I opened the expense summary and gave one copy to Megan. I did not say anything about Jason's relationship or the photographs. The numbers did not need a speech from me. Jason pointed at me anyway. "This is exactly the problem. He's been influencing her for weeks." People nearby stopped pretending not to listen. Jason looked at Rachel. "Are you really going to stand here and act like nothing was happening between you two?" Rachel's shoulders went still. For 1 second, I thought she might leave. Instead, she stepped forward. "You left me for someone from your office," she said. "Every photograph was taken afterward. Chris helped me review records because you tried to force a sale before I understood my rights." Jason glanced toward the buyers. Rachel continued. "You stopped paying several property expenses. I covered them. My personal life does not erase invoices, bank transfers, or written promises. You're embarrassing yourself, Jason said. No, Rachel replied. I'm done being embarrassed by choices you made. The room went completely quiet. Then she looked directly at him. Chris never used my worst moment to take something from me. You did. The listing agent ended the open house less than 5 minutes later. The open house did not end the argument over the duplex. It ended Jason's ability to pretend there was no argument. Once the listing agent had the expense claim in writing, the brokerage became cautious. Jason's attorney became cautious too. The messages stopped sounding confident and started sounding like negotiations. Rachel did not celebrate. She went home, changed out of the navy dress, and sat at her kitchen table with a glass of water. I thought I'd feel better, she said. You stood up for yourself in front of a room full of people. I know. That doesn't mean it was enjoyable. She looked toward the folders stacked by the wall. I'm tired of all of this being my life. It won't be forever. For the first time, I believe that. Over the next few weeks, Megan handled most of the contact. Rachel reviewed every proposal and made every decision herself. Jason first offered to buy her share at a number that ignored the expenses she had covered. Rachel rejected it. Then he suggested they sell and divide the proceeds after closing. Megan reminded him that the accounting dispute had to be resolved first. The online accusations became quieter when they stopped helping him. A few people contacted Rachel to apologize. Others simply stopped messaging. Rachel did not chase anyone for an explanation. The people who know me already know, she said one evening. The rest can decide whatever they want. She unfolded my gray sweatshirt from the back of a chair. For days, she had avoided wearing it. Now she pulled it over her head and rolled the sleeves. You sure? I asked. It's a sweatshirt, Chris. That is what I've been saying. She smiled, then stopped looking nervous. The final negotiation changed direction when Rachel asked Megan whether she could keep the duplex. Not sell it. Keep it. She had savings. The property had steady rental history. With refinancing and the credit for Jason's unpaid expenses, buying his interest was possible. Possible did not mean easy. Rachel spent several evenings reviewing loan terms, future repair costs, rent income, and emergency reserves. I helped her estimate the renovation work one unit would need after the current tenant moved out, but I stayed out of the ownership decision. This is a lot to carry, I told her. I know. You don't have to prove anything by keeping it. I'm not keeping it to prove something. That was the answer I needed. Jason eventually agreed. He wanted out, and the longer the dispute continued, the less control he had over the result. Rachel hired a part-time management assistant to handle routine tenant calls and maintenance scheduling. She said owning the duplex did not mean she had to personally answer every message about a dripping faucet at 7 in the morning. I approved of this development more than she appreciated. When the final papers were ready, Rachel asked me to come to Megan's office. I went, but I waited outside the conference room during the signing. The property was hers. The choice was hers. I did not want my face beside hers in every important moment, as though she needed me there to make the decision real. About 40 minutes later, the door opened. Rachel stepped into the hallway holding a folder against her chest. The duplex is mine, she said. I stood. It already operated like yours. She raised an eyebrow. Now the records tell the truth, I added. She crossed the hallway and hugged me. This time, I did not hold back. Neither did she. Several days later, Rachel invited me to dinner at a small restaurant near Falls Park. There were no folders on the table, no laptop, no legal messages. I almost did not recognize us. We talked about work, a terrible cabinet layout I had seen that afternoon, and a tenant who had tried to repair a screen door with packing tape. After dinner arrived, Rachel placed her fork down. Why didn't you ever tell me? She asked. I knew what she meant. You were with Jason. That explains before. I looked at her. Afterward, you were hurt, I said. I didn't want you moving straight from him to me because I was nearby and felt safe. You think I can't tell the difference? I think anyone can confuse relief with love when their life has just fallen apart. Rachel reached across the table and placed her hand over mine. You didn't rescue me. I know. You helped me slow everything down long enough to think clearly. I stayed quiet. I'm choosing you now, she said. Not because you opened your apartment. Not because you organized papers. Because I know who you are when nobody is watching. My hand tightened under hers. I'm afraid of ruining the friendship, I admitted. Refusing to change it is still a choice. After dinner, we walked through downtown. The streets were bright, and people were still moving between restaurants and shops. Outside our building, Rachel stopped. For once, neither of us tried to be careful. Our first kiss happened beside the entrance, with the elevator doors opening somewhere behind us. When we stepped inside, she took my hand. She did not have a suitcase. We kept our separate apartments. Rachel managed the duplex. I continued my work. When one unit became vacant, she hired me through the office to prepare a renovation plan. We documented everything properly, mostly because Megan had trained us too well. Months later, the unit had better lighting, durable flooring, and a laundry area that did not require tenants to balance a basket on top of a water heater. The property was profitable again. One warm evening, Rachel stood in my kitchen wearing the old gray sweatshirt while we made dinner. She leaned against the counter and watched me cut vegetables. "Do you still think I'm beautiful?" she asked. The first time she had asked me that, she had been standing in the hallway with red eyes and shaking hands, waiting for someone else's answer to tell her what she was worth. Now she was smiling. She already knew. I looked at the woman who had defended herself, kept her property, ignored the people who judged her, and chosen me when she was ready. "Beautiful is too small a word for you," I said. Rachel smiled. This time, she believed me.